Real quickly, if you're a fan of GameLeap content, we're in the process of expanding to Valorant and we would love your support. We're going to be including all the in-depth guides and goodness that you get on this channel, but for Valorant. So if you want to check it out, head on over and smash the subscribe button. But don't worry, we're still going to be pumping out tons of content for this channel. I hope to see you there. Climbing on tank, especially through the lower ranks, can not only be insanely difficult, but frustrating as well. You get low resources, flanking DPS, and healers that don't prioritize you as the enabler or the space creator. In order to climb in this environment, you need specific top 6 tips that will help you instantly start to pop off more on tank. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it, shall we? So the first thing that you need to start doing right away is play aggressive when you can, but passive when you can't, based on how much your team is enabling you. If you're playing a Reinhardt, it is incredibly important that you play aggressively on the enemy, create that space for your team. Pushing up on the enemy puts pressure on them, allows your team to push forward, you take space and allow a lot more opportunity for your team. However, if your on is not healing you, if your DPS aren't pushing up with you, if all these factors aren't true, then you need to incorporate a much more passive playstyle proportionate to how much resources you're getting. Here's the thing that you need to understand. While playing aggressive is the correct play, if your team aren't enabling you, then it becomes the incorrect play and you need to stop doing that. Unfortunately, this is the reality of the situation, but it's up to you to decide when you can be aggressive and when you can't be aggressive. Because a problem will happen where players won't get enabled and they won't push up aggressively one game, and then the next game, they have better supports or better DPS that are more aware of them, and they're still not pushing up aggressively, even though they have more resources on the table. I hope this really makes sense to you, because this is something that you need to start doing in each and every game. But you might be asking, okay, what about these games that I'm playing passively and we're still losing? I'm playing really passively, my DPS is on the flank, my support's not healing me, and we're losing, and I can't do anything because I'm a passive tank. But that's when we jump to our second tip on our list that's really going to help you perform even when your teammates aren't supporting you in any way and you need a hard carry. But before we get to that, if you want to know how to pop off with literally any tank on the roster, definitely go check out GameLeap.com. We have in-depth Grandmaster VOD reviews breaking down Ball, Hog, Diva, Zarya, Sigma to help you start popping off on them right now. Anyways, going back to the thing that you need to do if you have a really passive team that aren't enabling you, but you still need to carry, you need to swap it up to a character that needs very little resources to get a lot done. The two biggest examples of this are Hammond and Roadhog. Now, the thing about Hammond is an incredibly powerful character that needs very little resources from his team. He can go around the map getting health packs. He hardly needs any healing. He can create space and opportunity. And Hog has a self-heal. He can go on flank plays, create space for his team. Now, you need to understand that you're not coddling your team when you play these heroes. You don't give them a shield for them to play around. And for the lower ranks, a lot of players aren't going to really be able to understand how to play around no shield. They're not going to understand how to use the space you're creating that well, and you're going to make it slightly harder on them. But if they weren't enabling you in the first place, this is going to be 1,000 times better than playing that passive Ryan and your team constantly going on flanks and doing nothing. Playing ball, going and touching the point, swinging through enemies, slamming into them, or playing Hog, getting hooks, getting picks, going on a flank and dragging enemies away will create far more space than being that passive Ryan. So far we covered what you could do right off the bat. Play aggressively when you can, but you have to be more passive if your team aren't enabling you, and if you still aren't winning the game, you swap to something like Ball and Hog that needs far less resources. But now you might be asking, what are some things that you need to do, or what can you do to enable your team or get more impact overall? And what you should do on tank specifically is you need to start picking characters that enable other teammates and help them try to accomplish what they want to. If you are a flexible tank, you can help your teammates immensely based on what you pick and how it synergizes with your team, either your other tank or your DPS/supports. Let me give you this example. If your main tank picks Diva and you pick Roadhog, not only do you give your team no source of shielding, you don't have any space creators either. You're not diving. Everyone's going to have to be flanking, and it's going to be really hard for your team to perform at all. Understanding that, oh, hey, Diva goes good with Monkey. Diva goes good with Rhine. Even an Orisa is better than a Roadhog. Understanding that a Zarya can bubble your Rhine and create space, or maybe you could play a Rhine for your Zarya main. Being the flexible tank can allow you to win a lot of games, enabling your teammates and helping them accomplish what they want to. You could even do this on a micro level to take a job away from your teammates to accomplish it yourself. Let me give you this example. Let's say that there's a Hanzo on the high ground that keeps raining down on your team. You have a Hanzo on your team and you could say, hey Hanzo, snipe him, shoot him, zone him away, hit one shot, hit any shot, please Hanzo. And you could just keep complaining at him, and maybe your Hanzo just keeps losing over and over again. Whether it's his fault or not, whether he's being enabled or not, doesn't matter. If you swap to Diva and contest the Hanzo yourself, at the very least zone him away, you take a job away from your teammates, you help that Hanzo accomplished what he wants to, and then maybe when your Hanzo's in a better position, he'll actually win the matchup, or at the very least, you make the matchup lopsided for your Hanzo because you're shutting down something that he needs to shut down and your whole team wants to shut down. This is something that you could start doing right away on tank, and it's very powerful. Particularly off tanks can be enablers for your whole team, and if you're playing main tank, you want to definitely be playing a main tank that works well with your composition. Playing a dive tank when you have dive DPS, or playing a shield tank when you have DPS that want to play around natural cover and poke from a distance. These are all things that if you understand, you could bring more impact instantly on tank and start climbing more. Now moving on to the fourth tip that will help you start to climb on tank instantly, you really need to understand what role you need to accomplish on each and every tank. If you're a shield tank, such as Rein, the point of your shield is to let your teammates move from one natural cover to the next without being under fire, or damage the enemy behind the safety of your shield. If you get right up to the enemy with your DPS but your shield breaks, guess what? Not only do your teammates not have any cover, but the advantages of your shield, allowing your teammates to do damage to the enemy from behind your shield, is neutralized. So you gotta ask yourself, maybe I need to allow myself to take damage. Maybe I need to route through natural cover to save shield health. Maybe I need to make sure that when I'm actually engaging the enemy, I have a shield up so that my team can do damage to the enemy. These are all really important factors to get right. Now let's move on to a different type of tank. Let's say a diver. It's really important for a diver to call a target and dive said target. The point of a dive is to try to dive a target and burst them down. If you're diving the enemy tanks, or you're simply just routing around, you're never calling a target, you're never diving, then you're not doing your job as a diver. And you really need to understand what your job is. As a tank, you need to understand your role more than any other character. DPS could just simply just do damage and get picks. They don't have to know anything about their job if they're just doing that. Supports can just be healing people non-stop. And sure, these players aren't going to be good at their job, but at least they're going to be doing something. But if you're a tank that doesn't know his job, you're going to be utterly useless. If you don't understand what you have to accomplish each and every game, then you're never going to climb. It's so important and paramount that tanks in particular have a certain higher level of game sense for their rank than other people in their team and in other roles. Now let's talk about a different tank that you need to understand what they do. It's peelers. Peelers such as D.Va, we talked about that before. Peeling is extremely powerful. Being able to save a support that's getting dove, someone like D.Va Defense Matrix can easily save them. Even someone like Roadhog can hypothetically peel if you're hooking a Doomfist out of your backline. Understanding that that is something that you can accomplish, and if your team needs that, you can either one, swap to a peeler, and two, you need to be sure that you're actively peeling for your team. And the last thing that you need to understand is this is the subset of all tanks. It's space creation. And I've talked about space a lot of times on the channel, but to give you a TLDR, space is the areas on the map that you and your team control that your teammates can do effective damage and heals from more effectively and have more value on average. So space is the areas on the map that you want to control and take, and every single tank either wants to take space themselves or enable the other tank to take space. Hammond wants to go in, disrupt the enemy, take space. Rein wants to push up aggressively, take space. D.Va wants to protect Rein from doing this. Zarya wants to bubble Rein and enable this. Monkey wants to dive a target and get kills, thus creating space. There's a lot of different ways to create space, but you need to understand that at the end of the day, if you do not create any space for your team, it's almost like your team will feel like they can't get anything done. It almost feels like your team can't even get into positions to do damage or positions to make plays. And that is the problem, and that is why tanking is so important, and that is why it's so important that you understand your role on tank. Now moving on to tip number 5 on tank to help you start climbing right away. You need to calm. I can't express this enough. If you're a main tank, a diver such as Monkey, you need to be calling every time you dive. You need to be calling your setups. You need to be calling where you're routing. If your teammates don't know what they're supposed to be doing, they're never going to go in with you. If your teammates don't know when you're going in, there might be a disconnect between when you go in and when they can go in. Imagine you just instantly just jump without saying anything, and your D.Va's jets are on like a 3-second cooldown, and your Genji doesn't even have his dash, or they're not even paying attention to you, or they don't even understand what you're trying to accomplish. These are all things that are really important. Imagine if you're a Reinhardt and you're just walking forward, you're walking in, and you don't tell your team how much shield health you have. You don't tell your team where you're trying to go, what you're trying to do. You don't tell them to help you, enable you, heal you. You're pushing in. You don't give your team any sort of comms. And at the same time, if you're something like a Zarya or a D.Va or things like that, calming to your team is very valuable. Playing a Zarya and calming to your Rein. I'm gonna bubble you here. I have bubble. I don't have bubble in 6 seconds. These type of things are so important because it allows your team to understand, oh, I can push in aggressively. Oh, I need a real back. These are all important factors, and this is something that a lot of tanks get wrong. I talked about ways that you can get through the really low ranks, but as you climb, it's all about enabling your team. Tank players need to have the highest level of game sense, and as such, you should be calming and bringing more to the table, getting everyone on the same page. It will bring you way more value in each and every game, I promise you. If you're playing tank, you need to start calming. Now let's move on to the last and final thing that you need to do that will help you climb as tank, and this is something that almost all of you probably neglect, I guarantee it, and that's your mechanics. I don't care if you're a Rein, a Monkey, a Zarya, or a Diva, you need to practice your mechanical skill and your mechanics, at least the mechanics on your character. Let me explain. So if you're playing something like Zarya and Diva, your overall DPS is going to be vastly increased based on your tracking. This is really important, and this means that you need to practice your mechanics as well. Don't completely neglect them, and understand that as your DPS goes up, the plays that you can make will also go up. And then you might be thinking, what about Rein and Monkey? Why do those mechanics matter? Well, understanding the specific mechanics of those characters. How does Earthshatter work? Earthshatter can climb up stairs. You can Earthshatter people through payload. Understanding how to cancel your swing halfway through with a shield to block a shatter. Understanding how to Primal Rage. Maybe going to the practice room and practicing Primal Rage mechanics on bots. You're able to just have unlimited Primal Rage. You can just practice that. You being able to get 3 or 4 kills with a Primal Rage is always going to be better than getting 1 or no kills with a Primal Rage, right? And that can translate straight into SR gained and games won. If you do that across the board with multiple tanks through multiple games, you will win more games. Do not neglect your mechanics. Do not assume that you already have mastery of a tank because it's easy. There's so much more that you need to learn and need to do, and there's so much more that you should practice each and every day if you want to become the best tank. I find players that really care about their mechanics on tanks are the ones that succeed through every rank, because ultimately what happens is you will eventually hit a wall. There will be players above you that understand the mechanical interactions of their character better than you, and they use that to get a leg up in the competition, and they're in a higher rank than you, and they will always be in a higher rank than you unless you take this step seriously. That being said, I think the best way to improve on tank is watching VOD reviews, and the best tank VOD reviews you'll find anywhere are on GameLeap.com. All you gotta do is go check it out. It'll take you a couple minutes, and that's pretty much all you have to do. Anyways, if you liked this video, if you didn't, if you agree or disagree, if there's anything that you're having trouble with climbing as a tank, definitely let me know in the comments down below. I'll try to respond to whatever comments you leave. That's all I have for you today. I'm Coach Bills, and until next time.